Allah is my heart's speech. Your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasulihi al-Amin. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's episode would be dedicated to your emails. Therefore, we will not be receiving any of your phone calls. If you have a question, you may send us an email, or if you would like, then you may postpone your phone call until further weeks, inshallah, when this program is back live on air. Sister Ashma asked a number of questions, and in a previous program we spoke about the ruling on dyeing the hair and on plucking the eyebrows. And to elaborate, the hair on the human body is one of three. Either it is mandatory to remove, or it is forbidden to remove, or it is permissible to remove. So the hair that is forbidden for a person to remove, for men and women, is the eyebrows. The most authentic opinion is that you cannot pluck the eyebrows, you cannot cut the eyebrows, and you cannot shave the eyebrows as well, for both men and women. And for men, it is forbidden for them to shave their beards. This is completely unacceptable in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ forbade this, and he instructed us to grow the beards for the men. And the consensus of the four schools of thought in Islam states that it is forbidden to shave the beard. The hair that is mandatory for both men and women to remove is the pubic hair, the hair that grows over the private parts, and the armpit hair. And the sunnah is to pluck the armpit hair and to shave the pubic hair. The third type of hair is the hair in the rest of your body, which the Quran nor the Sunnah told us what to do with it. So it is permissible for you to keep or to remove. This is up to you. Like the hair that grows on the arms or on the legs. But the custom is that only women remove the hair on their arms and legs, and the men would keep this. And it depends from one country to the other, from one people to the other. Sister Ashma also says or asks about the ruling on covering the face. Is it mandatory or not? And we've stated this so many times that it's an issue of dispute among scholars, and the most authentic opinion is that it is mandatory for a woman to cover her face, because this is a form of protection, not only for her, but also for the men who may be fascinated or attracted to her beauty. And also this is what the verses of the Quran and the authentic hadith all lead to. And the consensus of scholars is that the wives of the Prophet ﷺ were mandated to cover their faces. And the instruction came for also the rest of the women to cover their faces as well. Therefore, what I believe is that the most authentic opinion of scholars that a woman should cover her face from non-mahrams. So if she goes out, she has to cover her face. And this is for her protection, and for the protection of the society at large. She goes on to say, what is the ruling on wearing jeans for women? Well, wearing trousers is an issue of dispute among scholars. Some looked at it as something that is to be worn only by men, and I believe that this is not an authentic opinion or a strong opinion. What I believe is that a woman can wear trousers, providing that these trousers are not tight and they're not giving away her figure. So if the trousers are loose and she's sitting in front of other women or her children, then I believe that this is tolerable but not advisable, because other scholars say that it is not permissible. So just to be safe and out of the room of doubt. However, wearing tight trousers or tight clothes, this is completely forbidden for both men and women, but especially for women, because there is something about women, about their curves, that provoke people. And this is why Allah instructed women to cover up from head to toe when they leave. And no matter how ugly a woman is, she has to cover. While men don't have to do this, because their influence over other men or other women is far less than the influence of a woman in the street. And this is human nature, and this is how Allah Azza wa Jal created us, and He knows what He created. Therefore, He instructed women to cover. And she also asks about the ruling on reciting Fatiha when going to mazars, graveyards. Is this okay or not? Well, we have to know that a woman is not allowed to visit a graveyard. And there is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ curses women who do this often. So scholars said that it is not permissible for a woman to visit a graveyard, simply because she is, we don't have a justification from the Quran and Sunnah. We have to do it as it is. But some scholars thought of giving some clarifications or justifications by saying this is due to the nature of women in general. They're soft-hearted, and if they visit the graveyard of a husband or of a father or of a son, they would probably cry and maybe do something that would be inappropriate for a woman to do outside of her house. And therefore, it is not permissible for a woman to visit a graveyard, generally speaking. What I read in her question was going to mazars, graveyard. If I understand this correctly, in some so-called Islamic countries, they have what is known as mazar. And a mazar is a tomb that is built over a grave, and people think that this is a saint or a pious person, and they go and pray, and they may sacrifice some animals for this so-called saint, and they may put candles, and they may put forward their requests and needs in pieces of papers, and may give sacrifices of different kinds and buy things and food, etc. Such acts would be considered part of shirk that leads to associating others with Allah. Going to the graves and making tawaf, or touching them, seeking their barakah, or sacrificing for the saint, this is all shirk. These are deeds that can only be attributed to Allah Azza wa Jal. Asking the saint to facilitate things for us in this dunya, or to prevent harm from coming our way, is major shirk. Whoever does this is not a Muslim anymore, even if he prays, fasts, and performs pilgrimage, because he associated others with Allah. Allah does not forgive any forms of associating others with Him. Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bih. Allah does not forgive people who associate others with Him, and He may forgive any other sin to whomever He wishes, as stated in 2 places in the Quran. So going to such saints or to such mazar is completely prohibited for men and for women. Going to someone who's dead and asking him and telling him that I have this problem I'd like you to solve. My wife is disobedient, my son went astray, I have debts, I'm losing my job, I'm ill. Asking anyone other than Allah is shirk. If you go to a deceased, if you go to a dead person and ask him to do something for you that only Allah can do, this is considered to be major shirk, and this is not permissible at all. So going to such graveyards for men and women is not permissible. And unfortunately, a lot of the Muslims are heavily involved in such shirk. People believe in such saints, believing in calling the deceased, the dead, asking them for guidance and for help. They would swear by these so-called saints, yet they would refuse to swear by Allah Azza wa Jal. Or they would find it easy to swear by Allah and lie, rather than swearing by these saints and lie. They could never lie. And this is an indication that these are not Muslim, because they're associating others with Allah Azza wa Jal. If you go to Muslim countries, you would find priests, so-called Muslim, that are taking care of these tombs and shrines and places of worship to other than Allah Azza wa Jal. And they are the priests that take the money from the poor and telling them that your prayers would be answered, you will have a child, and your debt would be paid, and this and that. And all of this is blasphemy. You're associating others with Allah, even if you do this with the Prophet. Allahumma salli wa sallim alayhi. Even if you go to the grave of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and ask him and address him, O Prophet of Allah, do this for me, do that for me, or ask Allah to do this for me or do that for me, this is shirk. Because you're asking someone to do something that only Allah can do for you. And why go to saints and to humans when you can go and turn to Allah Azza wa Jal? They say, yeah, we know that, but these saints, these pious people, they're closer to Allah. So we call them so that they could call Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is exactly what the mushriks, the mushrikeen of Mecca replied. When they were told, why do you worship these idols? They said, we don't worship them. We don't believe that they have life and death in their hands, or that they get the rain to fall down, or that they bring us provisions. We don't believe this, but we take them as intermediates to Allah Azza wa Jal. So it's our way to Allah through them. And Allah described them as mushrikeen, those who associate others with Allah. So this is a very major issue. It is far greater than how you pray or how you fast. It's far important, more important than committing adultery or drinking intoxicants. These are sins, major sins. But what I've just mentioned is something that annihilates Islam, that voids Islam, that cancels Islam altogether, no matter what you do, and it's something that we should take care of. I believe that we have a break. Stay tuned, and inshallah, we will be right back.
All the prophets are brothers, and they represent the same message. What was the call of the prophet? What was his invitation? He was inviting to what? So the prophet said, "O Allah, grant your mercy on the one who is tolerant if he sails, on one who is tolerant if he buys, and one who is tolerant when he seeks his rights." try to discipline them in the best way, those daughters will be his shield. That means those will be the reason, the cause of his protection from hellfire. Because of what? Taking care of them. What you have in this life, no matter what you have, is less. And it is temporary.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Umama from Saudi Arabia sent us an email saying that my husband has his own house where his parents and sisters stay, and an empty land and several flats which he has rented. Kindly advise and explain in which property does he needs to pay zakat. We've stated this before, and we've said that zakat is dependent on the category that it should be paid. So you have 4 categories that you have to pay zakat for. If you understand them, if you believe them, then you, inshallah, would not need to ask questions about zakah in the future. The 4 categories that scholars say are as follows. Gold and silver. Gold and silver and whatever falls under this category, such as currency, euros, dollars, etc., you have to pay zakah for that. The second category is whatever comes out of the ground in forms of vegetation that can be weighed. So in this and can be stored as well. So we have dates, we have raisins, that we have wheat, we have cereals. All of these can be weighed or can be contained and can be stored. You have zakah for this. The third category is the cattle, camels, cows, sheep, and the likes, if they feed on an open prairie. So you have to pay zakah as well. And the last and fourth category is things that are displayed for sale. So things that you buy and sell, goods, then you have to pay zakah for them. These are the 4 things, 4 categories. So if a person says, okay, I have a car, do I have to pay zakah? I would look into these 4 categories. It's not money, and it's not cattle, and it's not vegetation or something that comes from the ground, plants or whatever, and it's not something for sale. So no, I don't have to pay zakah. Do I have to pay zakah on my clothes? Same thing. My watch, my pen, my house, my furniture, the same thing. So we go to Umama's question. Her husband has his own house. Does he pay zakah? If we look at the 4 categories, we say, no, we don't. Okay, he has an empty land. Let's look at this empty land. Why does he have an empty land? If she says that, well, he buys lands and he sells them, and he makes like 5% profit on each land he buys and sells, and he keeps on doing this 6-7 times a year. And in this case, it falls under the 4th category, which are items displayed for sale, goods. So yes, he has to pay zakah. But if she says no, he bought it like 5-10 years ago, and it was a good deal, and he does not know, maybe he's going to build a house, maybe he's going to keep it so that his or our children would inherit it. He doesn't know what to do with it. And in this case, there is no zakah for that, because it does not fall under the 4th category. She says that he has several flats, and he rents these apartments. If I have something that is for rent, there is no zakah, because it's not one of the 4 categories. This means that I could have a company, or I can own myself 4 or 5 buildings, and I'm renting these buildings, leasing them, and I'm getting money. And these 5 buildings cost €1,000,000. So, do I have to pay zakah for €1,000,000? The answer is no. Because it is neither money, it is not cattle, it is not something that's coming from the ground, and it is not something that is for sale. It is for rent. But when I get the rent and a whole year passes on this rent, then I have to give zakat for it, 2.5% of what I have. Imagine I spent all the money and a whole year did not pass. There is no zakah. Imagine I have 100 cars and I'm renting these cars on daily basis. And whenever I get the revenue and whenever I get money from such rentals, I pay back the installments to the company. So maybe I'm generating 100,000 or 500,000 euros a year, but I'm not keeping a single penny. Do I have to give zakat? The answer is no, because what comes goes and you don't have any savings. So if you understand this, these 4 categories, and you know what falls under them, you, inshallah, would not need to ask this question again. Brother Muhammad says, I'm 23 years old. I am too skinny, not like others in my age. Is it permissible if I ask Allah in my prayers to make me stronger physically? Is it considered to be a matter of dissatisfaction of what Allah has given me? The answer is no. This is not a form of dissatisfaction, because Allah Azza wa Jal would test us with different kinds of tests and calamities. Being satisfied with Allah's testing and decree does not mean that you don't change your present. It's like saying that I broke my arm, and this is a test and a calamity from Allah. But to prove that I'm satisfied with Allah's testing, I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to go to the doctor. This is insane. Being dissatisfied is when you complain and when you always object to Allah's rulings. Why did He do this? Why me, not Him? Why all the others are not suffering as I am? Well, this is being dissatisfied. So in your case, because you're suffering from this thing that you don't like, which is being skinny, and a lot of the people nowadays in the times of obesity would wish and hope that they are as skinny as you are, it's not a problem, it's not a sin to pray to Allah to make you gain some weight and to give you a better body. And I believe that if you add to such dua and supplication that you eat a little bit more, that would add value. It would inshallah help to increase your weight if you eat the proper food and exercise properly. Brother Adnan sends us a question regarding washing the feet while performing wudu. He says in the Quran it is commanded for us to mash our head and feet, that is to rub over our heads and feet, as asked by one of my Shia friends. I was not able to rebut him in this matter, as he said there is nothing above the command of Allah in the Quran, even the Prophet ﷺ. Hope you can give me a reliable and beautiful answer. First of all, it is not permissible for you to take a friend that does not share your beliefs. So you can only be friend with Muslims. Okay, you may have an associate, a colleague, someone who works with you. This is permissible, whether he's a Muslim or a non-Muslim. But to hang out with such a person, or to be friend with and to socialize and favor him more than any other Muslim, this is not permissible. Secondly, those who follow deviant sects, you cannot be friend with them unless you want to call them to Islam. which means that you have to prepare yourself with the proper knowledge. But if this involves that they insult your religion, if they insult your Prophet ﷺ, if they insult his wives or his companions, this is not permissible for you to talk to such people, let alone to be friends with. Now, thirdly, when you said that Allah commanded us to do masih, that is rubbing the heads and the feet, this is wrong. Allah did not command us in this fashion as your so-called friend understands it. If you look at the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah Azza wa Jal instructs us whenever we want to pray to wash the faces, to wash our faces, and to wash our hands and arms to the elbows, and to wipe over our heads, and to wash our feet to the ankles. This is the ayah that if you open any book of any Quran, you will find it written in this fashion. If you know Arabic, you will find that Allah Azza wa Jal is saying this, but the order of the limbs has been made in such a way that you have two organs to be washed, one to be wiped, and one to be washed again. This to indicate that the order is one of the pillars of wudu. Otherwise, the verse would have been like so: O you who believe, whenever you want to pray, wash your faces, wash your hands and arms to the elbows, wash your feet to the ankles, and wipe over your heads. This is one way of reciting the ayah and the qira'ah, and this is found all over the books of the Quran. The other qira'ah is, which he referred to, washing over the head and washing the feet, and this is only when you're wearing your socks or your shoes to wipe over. But if someone comes and wipes over his foot, barefoot, his wudu is invalid and his prayer is invalid. He has to wash his feet. The only thing that he can wipe over is socks or his shoes. And therefore, we understand the Quran not by our whims and desires, but by the one who has been revealed this holy and noble Quran. Your friend is saying that nothing comes over or on top the commands of Allah, not even the Prophet's ﷺ. This is true, but unfortunately, this ignorant friend of yours does not know that the Prophet ﷺ does not utter anything except by revelation. So all what the Prophet ﷺ says from the Sunnah, from the teachings of the Prophet, is a revelation from Allah. If he makes the effort and he decides something or chooses something and makes a mistake, Allah would correct him. So whatever the Prophet does, it is been monitored by Allah, and if approved, it is part of the Sunnah. If disapproves, Allah Azza wa Jal would show us this, as in the case when the blind man walked in and the Prophet frowned in his face, ﷺ, because he was calling the dignitaries of Mecca. Allah Azza wa Jal immediately revealed that this was wrong. Also, when the Prophet ﷺ was instructed to marry the wife of his adopted son, Haritha, Zayd ibn Haritha, may Allah be pleased with him, he did not like this, and he feared what the people might say about this. And Allah Azza wa Jal showed us in the Quran that this is wrong. You should not fear the people, and you should only fear Allah, and this is going to happen because Allah said it was going to happen. And he did marry his cousin Zainab bin Jahsh, may Allah be pleased with her, after Zayd ibn Haritha divorced her because they could not live together with the way each thought of each other. So whatever the Prophet says, it's a revelation. It is like the Quran. The Prophet said in the authentic hadith, I have been given the Quran and something else similar to it, which is referring to the Sunnah. And you cannot understand the Quran without the Sunnah. How would you know that we have 5 daily prayers? 2 for Fajr, 4 for Dhuhr, Asr, and 3 for Maghrib, and 4 for Isha as well. How would you know the number of rak'ahs? How do you know that each rak'ah has 2 prostrations? Or we should do this, or we should do that? How would you know that zakat has to be in this nisab after 1 year from the cattle or from gold and silver and from this and that? How would you know that I'm not allowed to marry this or that, and I'm allowed to marry this or that? So many things in the Quran is explained to us by the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you cannot fully comprehend the Quran without going through the Sunnah. Therefore, I request you that you choose and select your friends, and that you learn your religion, so that not every time someone pops up and gives you doubts, makes you doubtful about your religion. I believe we have a break. Stay tuned, inshallah, we'll be back.
Welcome to Ramadan in Focus. I'm Yusuf Estes. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, you can appreciate the subject of Ramadan. As we say in Texas, get the hay down where goats can eat it, Totally and completely all mercy, if there is mercy, must be coming from Ar-Rahman. How much? 99 times all of the mercy that's ever been shown in this universe is going to be shown to the believers on that day. And certainly we will need it. Isn't that the truth? Look, this is from the mercy, the rahmah of Allah. So it's always a responsibility of Muslims to make sure the right message gets out. But it's also our responsibility to listen to those in authority over us.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Fatumatta sends us a question, and she says, is female circumcision permissible, and whether it was done during the time of the Prophet ﷺ? The most authentic opinion of scholars is that circumcision is part of human nature, and it is something that is natural and part of nature, as in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, meaning that this is the original way that Allah has created people to have, and that is to clip their nails, to shave or trim their mustaches, to remove the pubic hair, to pluck the armpit hair, and to have circumcision. However, the scholars agree that male circumcision is mandatory, and hundreds of medical reports support this. This does not concern us as Muslims, whether medical reports support or disagree, because we as Muslims submit our will to Allah Azza wa Jal, and whatever the Prophet tells us, as some we follow, whether the medical reports support or disagrees and rejects. So male circumcision is mandatory. As for female circumcision, scholars differed, and the most authentic opinion is that it is recommended and it's a sunnah. If you do it, Allah will reward you. If you don't, Allah will not punish you. And it depends on the country and the location. And it also depends on the surgeon operating this. If he's not knowledgeable, if he does not have the experience, it's forbidden for you to do this. And it differs, as I said, from cold countries to warm countries and on the need of doing this. Some do not need it, some may require it. But at the end of the day, it would not be fair to say that it's not part of the sunnah or to claim that it is forbidden to do it, because the authentic hadith or a number of hadiths prove that this was practiced at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ gave guidelines to those who are operating by not exceeding the limit and overdoing it, and also by not leaving it as it is, as this would not be suitable. And is it advisable to do or not? It's recommended, depending that you trust the one who's doing it, who's operating it, and there is need for it, and by not exceeding the measurement and the amount prescribed to us by the Prophet ﷺ. Hamdan sends us a question, and he says that I'm a new Muslim. My question is the reward for reading the Quran from a translation the same with the reward on reading the original Arabic text of the Quran? This is a question often asked by the non-Arabs. They cannot read the Arabic book, or they may be able to read the Arabic book but not to understand it. So they read the translation of the meaning of the Holy Quran. So is it the same reward? And what reward are we talking about? The Prophet said ﷺ that with each letter of the Quran, a person is rewarded by approximately 10 good deeds. I do not say Alif Lam Mim is one letter. Alif is one letter, Lam is one letter, Mim is one letter. So whenever you read the Arabic text, Allah would reward you this. 10 good deeds for each letter you recite. And this can be multiplied up to 700, and Allah Azza wa Jal can multiply it as much as He wishes. So if I know Arabic but I cannot understand it, would it be the same reward for me to read in the translation of the meaning of the Holy Quran? The answer is no. This reward is only for those who recite the Quran in Arabic. If you recite the meaning, then you are reading the interpretation of the meaning of the Holy Quran, but not the actual text, not the actual word of Allah Azza wa Jal. Nevertheless, if you read the interpretation of the Quran, if you read the tafsir, you're rewarded because your intention is to learn, but it's a different reward. It is not the same, and hence you would not be rewarded in the same fashion if you read the Quran in Arabic language. Sufyana from Algeria, she says, am I allowed to masturbate in case I'm sexually excited? Masturbation is a sin. An individual cannot sexually entertain himself unless it's with his wife or with what his right hand possesses, and which is not available at the present time. So a person can only entertain himself sexually with his wife. She can do whatever she wants with him, and he can do whatever he wants with her, providing that the Islamic boundaries are followed, which is not the proper place to discuss them now. Masturbation, Allah Azza wa Jal described it as a form of transgression, because He told us that the believers preserve their private parts except from their wives and what their right hand possesses, and whoever seeks his pleasure other than these two, then he would be committing a form of transgression. Therefore, when you come to such a question, if a person is sexually excited, is it permissible for him to masturbate? The answer is no. Because during the day and the night, with present day's media, internet, chatting, phone calls, SMSs, magazines, newspapers, billboards, etc., people are constantly excited sexually because they're not lowering their gaze. They're not following the Quran and the Sunnah. And that is why they're always hyper. So does this mean that this sin becomes permissible? The answer is no. It is forbidden to commit such an evil when a person is excited, if he is excited, then he should do what Allah or the Prophet ﷺ commanded him to do, and that is to get married. So if you have a wife or if you have a husband, then go and satisfy yourself with your spouse. If you don't, and you're still excited, then you have to fast, because this shortens your temper and makes this urge of having sexual desire far lesser in extent, with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. Sardar from India says, I have a doubt about asking wasila from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our supplication. Is it permissible? See, one preposition would make a difference. If you say asking wasila from Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, is different from asking wasila for Muhammad. We as Muslims are instructed to ask the wasila and the fadila and the al-maqam al-mahmuda to the Prophet ﷺ after every adhan we hear. And the Prophet said ﷺ, whoever hears the adhan and repeats after the mu'adhin what he had said, and then says, "O Allah, give our Prophet ﷺ the means, the wasila, and the virtue, al-fadila, and the al-maqam al-mahmud, which is the praised place on the Day of Judgment." The Prophet said, whoever asks this for me, then he will win my intercession on the Day of Judgment. And whoever the Prophet intercedes for, this means that he, inshallah, would be accepted by Allah, and Allah would accept his intercession. So asking the wasila for the Prophet is permissible. Not only that, it is highly recommended to do, and we do this every single day, 5 times a day at least. Now asking the wasila from the Prophet ﷺ is completely prohibited, and it can reach to the level of shirk and associating others with Allah, because you cannot ask anything from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet is dead, and whoever says that he's not dead, he is insane. Allah in the Quran says, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. You are going to die, and this is, you're dead, and they are as well going to die. And when he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions washed him, they offered funeral prayer, and they buried him. So if he's not dead, then what was this play all about? I believe we have a break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back.
Allah the Most High and Merciful says, "Invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and fair preaching." Do you want to join Huda in calling to Allah? Do you want to spread the message like the prophets did? Do you want to share in the blessings and rewards? Why not support Huda towards these noble aims? Why not sponsor a program of your choice? If you would like to help Huda in spreading the correct message of Islam, please send an email to support@huda.tv or call +2 014 327 1771 for more details, or fax +2 023 8555 251.
Would like to talk about some of the things that remind us of what Ramadan's really all about. To learn some of the lessons that Ramadan teaches us, how to put that in effect in our lives, and even how to carry it forward after the month of Ramadan. So before I even pray, I need to purify my body. But before I do that, I need to purify the heart. And this is key to all of us. One of the things about Ramadan, is that nobody can actually see you fasting. The real value of the Quran is to know and understand the meaning behind it, and then to put that into our lives, put it into practice, so that the Quran becomes living inside of me, and I begin to respond to the things around me in my life according to the way Allah wants me to. This is the month of inspiration. This is the month for the revelation, and this is the month for me to have a chance to really think about my Lord. Think about what it is that He's given me, and how I should be so appreciative of that. For Allah, You are the creator and sustainer of the whole universe, and we ask from You this, accept from us.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Dear viewers, Huda programs can be watched in the English section of the in-flight entertainment directory on board all Saudi airline flights, domestic and international. Sit back, relax and enjoy watching Huda's entertaining and enlightening shows on your trip. Huda wishes you a safe and successful journey. Huda, a light in every home.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Again, seeking the wasila for our Prophet ﷺ, this is highly recommended, and we do this all the time. But seeking the wasila from him, or asking him to intercede for us, or requesting him to do things for us, this is completely prohibited. And Shaitan, the devil, Satan, has succeeded in fooling the majority of Muslims through this, through exaggerating their love until they go out of the loop of Islam, whether it's for the Prophet ﷺ or for his family, for Al-Bayt, or for saints, or for scholars, or for whatever. Such exaggeration is completely prohibited. And I know for a fact that a lot of those so-called scholars who pretend to love the Prophet ﷺ and who manage to fool the normal people, the laymen, and claiming that they love the Prophet ﷺ and we have to kiss this piece of cloth or take this hair and glorify it, and whenever we hear the Prophet ﷺ name, we have to rub our eyes with our thumbs, and we have to put our hand. Innovations after innovation. These so-called scholars, they make millions and billions of money. They charge those who follow them because they fool them, and they would make these plots to distract them from following the Quran and Sunnah, and they would extort them for money. They would become richer and richer, and they pretend to be pious and God-fearing, subhanallah, they love Allah, and they use this as a camouflage to hide their desires and whims. They never follow the Quran, they never follow the Sunnah, but they gather a lot of followers who donate, who blindly follow whatever they have to say, and they are a sect of Islam. They are not part of Islam. I've read a book for one of them who exaggerated about the Prophet ﷺ so much that it took him out of the loop of Islam, though he's from this country, from the holy shrines. He used to say that the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is found in his book, it's printed and it's circulated. He said that the grave of the Prophet, the area that contains the Prophet's grave, body, so he's referring to the grave, and he reiterates and says, I'm not talking about the body, I'm talking about the grave itself. This grave, this piece of land, is more honorable than the Kaaba itself. Why? Because it contained the body of the Prophet ﷺ. Not only that, he says, it is more honorable than the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's not referring to the body, he's referring only to the whole. in the ground. What more blasphemy would you want from such people that exaggerate and fool others in the name of Islam? In another book of his, he says, if you go to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, go and stand next to the grave, and with humility and submissiveness say, Assalamu alayka ya awwal. You're addressing the Prophet now. Huh? He says, say, Assalamu alayka ya awwal, Assalamu alayka ya akhir, Assalamu alayka ya zahir, Assalamu alayka ya batin. These are 4 names of Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in verse 3 of Surah Al-Hadid. And this infidel is telling you to say it to the Prophet ﷺ. And he says, no, you misunderstood the fact altogether. These are the names of Allah, but we meant that He is the first to come out of the grave. And He's the last to pass over the sirat. And He is the zahir of this, and He's the batin of that. Where did you get this from? At the end of the day, I will find someone like him saying that the Prophet is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. The Prophet is Rabbul Alameen. And it's not like what you may think or believe. This is all blasphemous. This is kufr. And what led them to that such a level is their exaggeration in the love of the Prophet ﷺ through shaitan. Shaitan is fooling them, he's playing on them, and they have fallen into his traps. So it is not permissible for you at all to worship, to call, to ask except Allah the Almighty. Why go to others? I could make millions out of this. I could tell you, come to me. I have a direct link with Allah Azza wa Jal. Pay me 20%, like some sects in Islam pretending to be Muslims. They charge 20% of the income of an individual and claiming that this goes for Ahlul Bayt. It goes for the family of the Prophet ﷺ. And all what we see are people getting richer and richer, and they have nothing to do with Islam. So be a Muslim, be logical, follow the Quran and the Sunnah. Don't follow what I say, don't follow what Tom, Dick or Harry say to you. Only follow the Quran and the Sunnah, because this is what Allah is going to hold you accountable for on the Day of Judgment. Sister Noor from Saudi Arabia sent us a number of questions. They all revolve around the same thing almost. She says that what's the Islamic rule on women working abroad to earn their living while she has full permission of her parents to travel without a mahram? So is it permissible for her to travel without a mahram? The answer is no. Even if she has full permission from her parents, this is not required. What is required is the full permission from Allah Azza wa Jal, the full permission from the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ closed this door forever. And he said it is not permissible for a woman who believes in Allah and in the Day of Judgment to travel without a mahram. End of story. So the Prophet himself ﷺ, who banned this, who forbade this, therefore no one can come and say it's okay, it's permissible. No one can come nowadays and say this, because it was the Prophet who closed this door until the Day of Judgment. Second question is, this happened and they are now in Saudi Arabia and they work and they came here without a mahram. Is it permissible for them to travel to Mecca for Umrah if they are in the company of trustworthy women? And would this companionship be considered as mahram? The answer is the same. You are not allowed to travel to Mecca for Umrah, because traveling without a mahram is forbidden. Because you came all the way from your country to one city does not mean that you can hop from one city to the other without a mahram because you initially came without a mahram. No, this still remains, and the sin is reoccurring again and again whenever you travel. But if you are working in Jeddah, it is permissible for you to go with a group of women to perform Umrah, because Jeddah and Mecca are not considered to be a traveling distance. So they're considered to be suburbs of each other. So going up and down to Mecca for residents of Jeddah is permissible and a woman does not need a mahram for that. She needs the companionship of trustworthy women. And the third question, can I spend the whole of Ramadan in Mecca and joining the group of women in the same hotel from my country who came for Umrah and treat them as my mahram since I am alone? The answer is the same. If it's traveling to Mecca, no, this is not permissible, even if you are staying in a hotel with your country citizens, women generally, they are not your mahram and you cannot be with them. But if you are from Jeddah and you're traveling to, or you're going actually to Mecca and to stay with them, this is okay, and there is nothing, inshallah, wrong in that. Abdullah says, does the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have 99 names? There are a number of books written about the Prophet ﷺ's names, and there are hundreds and hundreds of books about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. But about his names, I believe that there are about 14 of them. However, the scholars say that this is an exaggeration, because the names of the Prophet ﷺ are a handful. And there is a difference between names and attributes. So the Prophet might say, or we can describe the Prophet ﷺ to be the light in the darkness, or the guidance of the unguided. So these are descriptions. I could write a gazillion description about the Prophet ﷺ in this fashion. But as far as names, his name is Ahmad, his name is Muhammad, his name is Al-Qafi, Al-Hashir, Al-Aqib, or whatever. These are the names that he called himself, and he told us that these are his names. So they do not reach 99 names. And again, I'm afraid that this is one of the steps of shaitan that he lures people through by exaggerating in their love to the Prophet ﷺ. We know that Allah has 99 names, as mentioned in the hadith. Not limited to 99, but this is what was mentioned in the hadith. The Prophet said, Allah has 99 names, 100 names minus 1, and whoever calculates it, whoever comprehends it, whoever understands it, then he will enter Jannah. But to say that the Prophet has 99 names as well, this would not be appropriate, because then you're making him like Allah Azza wa Jal. It is like when people write in their masjid walls, Allah, Muhammad. Are you associating Muhammad with Allah the Almighty? Putting Allah's name next to Muhammad's name, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This is unacceptable, because you're praising the Prophet far greater than Allah has praised him. He is the servant of Allah, he is the messenger of Allah, he is the beloved Prophet of Allah. But you cannot put his name, Muhammad, with Allah's name, because this may mislead others. I'm afraid that this is all the time we have. So until we meet next time, fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance.